Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking something absolutely mind-blowing. We are exploring the incredible architectural evolution of the Tirumala Sri Venkateshwara temple. But here's the thing. This isn't just your standard story about blueprints and stacking stones. What we're actually looking at is a truly fascinating dual history. It's a towering landmark built just as much by ancient, sacred mythology as it was by centuries of royal emperors.
To really understand this place, we've got to start with one central, deceptively simple question. Who exactly built the Tirumala temple? Honestly, it's the very first thing you wonder when you look up and see this massive, gold-laden complex. But to capture the truth, you have to realize the answer isn't a single architect. It's not one solitary king. It's an evolving, epic story that spans across multiple centuries and literally bridges the gap between heaven and earth. Okay, let's dive into this dichotomy right away. On the one hand, Hindu tradition attributes the temple's original cosmic design to Lord Vishwakarma, the celestial architect of the gods themselves. Incredible, right? But then on the other hand, historical records reveal a different kind of reality. The sprawling temple we walk through today wasn't built by just one person. Instead, it evolved over hundreds of years through the relentless, dedicated patronage of major South Indian dynasties. So, here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll uncover the mythological blueprint. Second, we'll examine the debt that built it. Third, we're going to trace centuries of expansion. And finally, we'll wrap things up with the awe-inspiring Vijayanagara Golden Age.
All right, Section 1, the mythological blueprint.
Well, before a single stone was ever laid by a human hand, the very geography of Tirumala was already considered incredibly sacred. According to the Puranas, the ground itself is divine. The story goes that long ago, Adishesha, the giant divine serpent of Lord Vishnu, descended to earth to form the Sheshachalam Hills. Its 7 peaks actually represent his 7 hoods, and the temple, it sits on the 7th and absolute holiest peak, Venkateshwara. But before Lord Venkateshwara even arrived, Lord Varaha, the divine boar incarnation of Vishnu who saved Mother Earth, chose these hills as his home. That established a sacred blueprint that is actively followed to this day. Every single devotee must first worship at the Varahaswamy temple before they're even permitted to visit Lord Venkateshwara.
Let's move along and see how this builds, because how did the temple's main deity actually get here? It all kicks off with a massive cosmic test. Sage Brigu, who was out searching for the supreme deity, insulted Lord Vishnu by actually kicking him on the chest. Vishnu responded with total patience. But goddess Lakshmi was deeply offended that her home was disrespected, so she left Vaikuntha for Earth. Unable to bear being separated, Lord Vishnu descended in human form as Srinivasa, just meditating quietly in a simple forest anthill right on these very hills. Eventually, he meets and falls completely in love with Princess Padmavati, who was an incarnation of Lakshmi. This leads to a huge, joyous royal marriage. After the wedding, to maintain universal harmony, the Lord assumed his eternal stone form as Lord Venkateshwara, deciding to stay on that hill forever.
Now, this brings us to a crucial definition that really grounds the spiritual gravity of the site. Tirumala is affectionately known as Kali Yuga Vaikuntham. Basically, this means it's the earthly Vaikuntha, the divine heavenly abode for our current age, the Kali Yuga. Hindus believe Lord Vishnu himself literally resides here in his stone form to actively protect humanity, grant blessings, and clear away obstacles for anyone who offers a sincere prayer.
Moving on to Section 2, the debt that built it.
So we transition from how the Lord arrived on the mountain to this utterly fascinating legend that explains the sheer wealth required to actually build his temple. Look, a wedding of that cosmic magnitude, it came with some enormous expenses. To fund the massive celebration, Lord Srinivasa had to borrow an unimaginably vast amount of wealth from Kubera, the god of riches himself. Now what's really interesting about this is that according to temple tradition, Lord Venkateshwara promised to repay this loan during the present Kali Yuga. Think about that. He didn't just casually borrow the money. He took on a divine debt that lasts throughout our entire current era.
And this is not just some quirky mythological footnote, guys. This is literally the economic engine of the temple's history. Because of this divine debt, devotees believe that by offering their own wealth and donations, they are personally helping the Lord repay Kubera. It's a real game changer. This legend perfectly explains the immense, ongoing influx of wealth that historically funded the massive physical expansion of the temple's architecture over the centuries.
Let's look at Section 3, Centuries of Expansion.
Okay, let's look at how all that devotion and wealth actually manifested into the stone, the carved pillars, and the grand halls we see today. The number 1500 is absolutely vital here. We know from ancient Tamil literature that Tirumala was already an important, recognized place of worship more than 1500 years ago. Long before the grand structures even existed, early local rulers were already worshiping at this humble shrine, laying the groundwork for what would become a massive, multi-generational architectural project.
The construction was honestly like a true relay race across empires. Following the early local rulers before the 9th century, the Pallava dynasty stepped in between the 6th and 9th centuries. Then, they passed the baton to the Chola dynasty from the 9th to the 13th centuries, and right after that, the Pandya dynasty took over in the 13th century. Each empire layered its own unique vision and resources directly onto the sacred hill.
This incredible collaborative triumph is super clear when we break down the specific contributions. The Pallavas, they kicked off the initial construction and the formal donations. Then the Cholas, who are already famous for their monumental temple building, stepped in with major expansions and huge endowments. And the Pandyas followed up with even more structural improvements. So over nearly a millennia, these distinct royal families systematically transformed a localized, simple shrine into a sprawling, awe-inspiring stone fortress of faith.
And that brings us to Section 4, the Vijayanagara Golden Age.
While those early dynasties built the foundation, the temple's absolute peak of architectural splendor was still yet to come. So the crucial point is this. When you picture the grand structures, the intricately carved pillars, and the vast pavilions of the temple today, you are primarily looking at the brilliant work of the Vijayanagara Empire. Ruling from the 14th to the 16th centuries, they poured completely unprecedented resources into Tirumala, elevating it from a regional marvel into a full-blown imperial masterpiece.
Now, no single human is more associated with the present grandeur of Tirumala than Emperor Sri Krishna Devaraya. He was the temple's absolute greatest royal patron. He didn't just donate stone, no. He offered staggering amounts of gold and precious jewels. He commissioned major architectural additions that completely transformed the skyline of the entire complex. And crucially for us historians today, he left heavily detailed inscriptions of his patronage preserved directly at Tirumala, literally cementing his legacy in stone forever. And this brilliantly illustrates the entire epic journey of this extraordinary site. I mean, we started with a mythological origin of profound humility, right? A solitary Lord Srinivasa meditating quietly beneath a forest anthill. And we end with a historical culmination of staggering power, a sprawling, gold-laden architectural marvel commissioned by the wealthiest emperors of South India. It's just an incredible contrast.
Today, of course, this evolving marvel doesn't belong to a single dynasty anymore. It's carefully administered by the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanams, or the TTD. They are the modern-day custodians, tasked with managing the incredible ongoing wealth, the millions upon millions of devotees, and the preservation of over 1,500 years of continuous architectural history.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this